Hey everybody, this is Brandon from Sparksmith helping you see and be seen. Today we're going to go over a complete installation of our full front end kit. Now that is a new release that we just came out with that includes the bi-LED Sparksmith headlights, the animated hood strip, the animated grill bars with amber turn, and a set of matching animated bumper bars with sequential turn. Now that also includes a sort of modified version of our plug-and-play harness that we have for these trucks. This one has, basically it's the double shot harness and the grill bar harness all in one. So we tried to make this as easy as possible. It can look a little bit daunting at first, but let's go through the steps. Okay, so first we're gonna look at, you've got the components, your headlights are in here, your hood strip, then you've got your grill bars, and then you've got your bumper bars. Now what you'll wanna do, it should come like this, all kind of plugged together, so you have an idea of what goes where. And try not to get too lost in the amount of wiring. We just do this one step at a time. It'll be nice and easy. We're gonna have these labeled for you so that you've got connections for the hood strip, which would be these two, your bumper bars, which would be these two, and your grill bars, which would be these two. And they're all three different setups for the plugs, so it'd be difficult to plug them up incorrectly, excuse me. So the first thing you want to do is, once you get everything kind of laid out, is take that harness that we've made up, and remember this is our double shot harness and the grill bar harness all in one. So it's going to have two sides to it, a left and a right. It actually doesn't matter which one's left and which one's right. Usually the side with the single wire we will put over to the passenger side, and then the side with multiple wires we'll put over to the driver's side. That's just kind of by convention, just so we do things the same here in the shop, but you can do it either way you want. We'll take this over and plug this up first and get started. Okay, so once you get your grill and headlights removed from the vehicle, I'm not going to go over that, it's super simple. We've got other tutorials out there that show you how to do that. So anyway, your factory sockets, hopefully they're good, clean sockets. You want to look inside there, make sure they don't have any like corrosion or rust or anything like that. If they do, go ahead and clean them out and get down to some nice shiny metal. Be sure and use the included dielectric grease to fill each of these cavities. And then you want to match up your 3-wire plug, and the black wire here lines up with the black wire on the factory plug. When you push it in, you'll feel it kind of get a little click, so you know it's seated. Then the 2-wire to 2-wire, and again, align black to black. Then you repeat the same effort on the passenger side. Okay, with the lights plugged into your factory sockets, you want to take your factory bulbs, or whatever bulbs you were running, and pop those into these new sockets. We're just going to do a little test to make sure that everything's working correctly. Okay, so once you get all 4 sockets connected and you get some bulbs put into the new sockets, they can be incandescent, they can be LED, doesn't really matter, as long as you know they're good working bulbs. We're just doing a functionality test of the harness, so we can take this one step at a time. So you'll turn the key on the truck and put it into neutral, of course put the parking brake on, and that should activate your daytime running light, assuming the truck's sitting in bright sunlight. And then all 4 bulbs should come on. Then put it back in park. That will turn the daytime running light off. You can switch your headlights on manually. That should turn on your parking lights. And again, all 4 bulbs should come on. And then you want to hit your, in this case, you can hit your hazards or left turn or right turn together. It doesn't really matter, but just activate your turn signals briefly and make sure that everything's functioning like it's supposed to. One last thing is, while you have your parking lights or daytime running lights activated, if you have one of your old bulbs, either low beam or high beam or fog, doesn't matter, take that guy and plug it in there and make sure that you've got power and ground to this plug with the white wire and the black wire. So that's your main power that's going to activate all the other accessories that we are about to add onto here. But if you just take a good, again, a known good bulb and plug it in there, you don't have to plug it all the way, just kind of touch it to it and make sure it lights up so you know you've got power and ground here. Okay, with that wiring complete, you want to take this splitter, and again, it can look like a lot, but try not to get intimidated. You want to take these are called male 9006. The one with red and black goes to the plug with white and black, and it'll just kind of click right in place. And then the yellows obviously go to the yellows for your turn signals. Now, we should have, with either the parking light or daytime running light activated, we should have power and ground to all three of these setups. So first thing I want to do is I'm going to test out the hood strip and make sure that it has power and ground like it's supposed to. So you'll take, there's a bundle of wires labeled hood strip, and you'll take and just match the colors up. So red and black together, yellows together, and now you've got your hood strip working. The next thing you'll want to do with the hood strip, and this is kind of an important point to note, is you got to make sure that you arrange the hood strip in the correct orientation, because there's going to be a left and a right. So kind of lay it out across your hood or wherever you've got room, so you have an idea, and then activate one of your turn signals. Don't do the hazards, because you need just the left or the right. And if you look here, I've accidentally gotten it correct, and I've got, so you can tell that the left side in this case will be the side without the wires, and the side that feeds the wires in will be on the right, which is the passenger side. So you want to do that check to make sure that when you lay this thing across the hood that it's in the correct orientation. Otherwise you're going to be pulling it back off and flipping it around. But if you go ahead and check it now, you can save yourself that hassle. Okay, next we're going to test out the GrilleBars, and those have the 9006 plugs. And again, you're just matching colors. And on the GrilleBars and the BumperBars, the orientation is not quite as critical, because you can flip them around if you get left and right mixed up. But it's not a bad idea to go ahead and hit your left and right turn signals just to make sure. See, in this case, we'll want to flip these around so that we get everything on the left and everything on the right. All right, last but not least will be your BumperBars. These are the ones with the aluminum brackets and the magnetic mounts. And we'll get to the physical installation of these as well, but if you want to do all the wiring first, just make sure everything works, and then go from there. So we'll plug one in, and on these, if left and right are mixed up, you can simply switch the plugs. So let's see what my luck is like. Okay, so I got it right that time. So everything's left, everything's on the right. Now, had these BumperBars been switched, you could have taken these two 3-pin JSTs and just swapped them, and that would switch which one was left and which one was right. So now that we know all three of these pieces are working, I would go ahead and do the physical installation of each one of these. So just as a quick overview, to install the actual GrilleBars, you'll remove the grill, you'll remove the badge, and you'll drill a hole in the center of each one of these kind of rectangular slots here behind the grill badge with an 1/8" drill bit. And you'll run down the included number 6 stainless steel screws and come down on the back side with the nylon lock nut, and that creates 2 mounting studs. Then you take your GrilleBars and you lay them in here, one on each side, and use the joining plate that holds them together. That'll get your GrilleBar physically installed. Okay, so the BumperBars are probably the easiest by far to install. Just thread the wire in, and these 3 40-pound magnets will suck this thing right up against the bumper. Now normally I kind of like to take them and put it down kind of right on the bottom edge. You're welcome to position it however you like. Just make sure that all 3 magnets get stuck into place, and then obviously your grill will be off and you can reach down there and take those wires and plug them into the main harness. So now that we've got the GrilleBars are physically installed, we've tested the wiring on those, the BumperBars are installed, we've tested the wiring on those, the next step is to install your actual headlights. So if you go ahead and get those out, and they will just plug right up to everything that we've got set up over there already. Okay, so once you get your headlights unboxed, I like to start with the parking light assemblies just to go from there. You're going to find that there are two plugs. One says turn signal and one's labeled daytime running. Now it doesn't matter which one of these go into because these sockets both do the same thing now. So you'll take one, again, fill these with dielectric grease, and take your turn signal light and plug it into the first socket. Now if you have, I recommend having your parking lights switched on manually so that everything's on, to make sure that as you plug it in that each step is working. So when you plug in the turn signal socket, that should turn on this amber portion. Now when you plug in the one that says daytime running light, it should look like this, where there's either 2 or 3 pins on one side and maybe no pins on the other. It will look different than the turn signal one. And the goal there, you should plug this in and you should immediately see this white running light come on. So if you don't, stop where you are, flip a plug around and make sure it's doing the right thing. Last but not least, on these bottom ones, you want to take your side marker, the T10 little 2-pin thing, again, grease this connection, slide that in there. It should not matter which orientation you put this in. You should be able to put it in either way and let that sit there. Now you'll want to take some zip ties and kind of tidy all this wiring up so that it's not just dangling around. Ideally, you would zip tie it in a way that these factory sockets are facing down so that they don't, if they're facing up, water will tend to pool in there and cause corrosion in very short order. So you want to zip tie these wires as nice and neat as best you can. Try and keep these sockets facing down. Even with the grease in there, keeping them facing down will help increase the longevity of the system. The resistor that comes with it, you can use some self-drilling screws and you can mount it right up here on this plastic. You can, if you'd like, just zip tie it in with the rest of the wiring. These should not get hot. If these get hot, there's something wrong in your wiring, so let us know and we'll help you find out what the problem is. Most likely it's just a plug that's been flipped around somewhere. But these only have power, they're designed to only have power as the turn signal is active, so they should never have power long enough to get hot. So make sure that that's tucked in nice and neat, and all this wiring gets tucked away. And the last thing you're going to need from this parking light assembly is this little guy right here. So it's a waterproof connector that goes from the parking light to the headlight assembly to give it the same functions that the parking light has. Now for the headlight, you've got it labeled low beam and high beam, and those of course just go straight into your low beam and high beam factory sockets. Now they are labeled, the camera may not pick it up, they are labeled, there's a plus sign and a minus sign on the socket coming from the headlight. The plus sign, you want that to line up with the wire that's not black. So this wire needs to line up with that plus, so we're gonna flip it like this and plug that guy in there. Same thing on the high beam, make sure that the minus sign on this lines up with the black wire on the plug. As usual, I recommend on these factory sockets, even a little bit of dielectric grease can go a long way right there. Lastly, you've got this one, which can only be plugged in one way, and that should activate your white running light. One thing I wanted to mention on these, when you're plugging the assemblies into the new harness, you want to make sure that it gets, like, it can stop right there and feel like it's all the way in. You want to push it in until you feel a little click. So this collar should be seated very close to the collar here. So if it's pulled out a little bit like that, it might work for a minute, but eventually it's going to loosen up and fall out. So just make sure you've got a good solid connection in there with all 4 of those plugs. Okay, so if you're getting these plugged in and you've got the turn signal light plugged in with your parking lights turned on, and this amber doesn't light up, you want to take the one that's labeled turn signal, unplug it, flip it, and plug it back in so that amber lights up. Okay, so one thing to think about with these is on all these headlights, whether they're OEM or aftermarket or whatever, this design is not the most stable design in the world. Because you see, with a little bit of force, the whole assembly just pops right out. It's supposed to lock into place on the inside, and then this little tab is supposed to keep it in place on the outer part. But you can see it doesn't take much for it to come loose. So it's not a bad idea to find you a self-drilling screw. We may actually start including these in our headlight kits to prevent this, but you want to basically run the screw through the mounting bracket so that it goes into right about here on the assembly so that it can't fall out. So now you can see you've got that screw in there, and it's going to take a substantial amount of force to get this headlight out of there. We've got the headlights installed, and we've got the bumper bars and grill bars all wired up and ready to go. The next step before you go putting the grill back on and put everything back together is going to be to aim the headlights. Now, as a general rule, you want the cutoff from the projector to drop about an inch over 25 feet. So you just need a vertical surface, you know, the back of a Walmart, garage door, whatever you got, and park the truck about 25 feet away. You want to take your tape measure and measure to about the center of the projector, which in this case is about 53.5. It's not an exact science, but let's get a rough idea. You want it at 52.5 because we're 25 feet away. And again, this is not exact science, but if we do it there, 52.5 is going to be about right there. So we're going to want the top of this step of the cutoff to come up to about right here on both sides. Okay, so to adjust it, there's one adjuster, and you can access it using a Phillips head screwdriver and just come in from the top. And looking at it from the top, if you rotate the screwdriver counterclockwise, that will raise the headlight, and rotating it clockwise, like you're trying to screw the screw in, would lower the height. And you can see here on the wall that if I go clockwise, it takes it down. If I go counterclockwise, that brings it up, and you can kind of make out where that blue tape is, just above that second horizontal bar on the garage door. That's about where we want this one. And then I'll do the same on the other side. The headlight's installed, and we've tested the turn signals, high beams, low beams, on all of that. We've got our grill bars and our bumper bars installed. I went ahead and put the grill back on to our test rig here, and next we'll go over how to do the hood strip. Okay, so you just want like a little bit of rubbing alcohol, something like that, and a reasonably clean rag, and you're going to clean any dust and debris and oil or wax or whatever off of the top of the headlight and along the front lip of the grill. Once you've got that good and clean, you simply take your hood strip. Make sure that you've got enough slack in the wire for the hood strip. Route it however you'd like, but try to make sure that there's no tension on any of the connections. So you want to zip tie it up so that any of the pull of the wires is being held by the black sheathing on the wire. And once you get that where you want it, you can kind of lay it out and just take it one piece at a time. It should go, if you look over here, you'll start removing one side of this double-sided adhesive, the protective covering, and you'll start it kind of just on the outside edge of the headlight there. And as you pull this red tape off, you'll kind of move slowly along and just work your way across the hood, just doing it one section at a time, slowly pulling that red tape off until you get back over to the other side. That should line you up, again, right at the outside corner of the headlight. Okay, so that should about do it. We've got the hood strip, the grill bars, and the bumper bars all done with our plug-and-play harness. We've got the headlights where the white running light is working and the amber marker light and turn signal are working. Again, if you just go through this process step by step and take it one component at a time, it should work out just fine. If you stumble upon anything along the way, you can always reach out to us, support@sparksmith.com.